Hey guys, this is Mike Keenan here. Today I'm going to be going over IPv4 subnetting. The purpose of subnetting is to divide a larger network into smaller networks, and the different part of subnets are the subnet mask, the network ID, the host ID, and the broadcast ID. Moving along, I just want to quickly go over subnetting, the binary conversion from a decimal into binary. So starting off, we have 4 octets in an IP address. 192.168.1.5 is our example. Each one of these numbers is known as an octet, separated by periods. And of course, over here, I have this 192.168.1.5 represented in binary form. Now, if you were to take each one of these places here, and we're going to start off at the very last octet here. If you were to take this number here, what we can do is we can say that this number, because computers see everything in binary ones and zeros, the first number we're going to say is a placeholder for the value of 1. The second number is the placeholder for value 2. The third, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and 128. And that's true for all of these. So going to the next octet, we start over. We say 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and so on. We'll do the same thing for this octet and the same thing for this octet. Now the numbers contained within those binary octets, you can get the value starting off at 0 if all the ones and zeros are set to 0, and you can get all the way up through 255. You can get any string of numbers between 0 and 255 by adding up those numbers. So in this case, we have 1 here. Use a different color. So we have 1 here, and then over here, so we go 1, and then 2, and then in this placeholder we have 4, so that equals 5. And of course, over here you see 5. And over here, the only one that we have on, called the 1 being on, so, and the zeros being off, so the 1, because it's on, we have 1. Over here, we have 128, we have 32, and we have 8, and that equals 168. And of course, 128 and 64 equals 192. And the subnet mask over here is 255.255.255.0. So all the bits over here are on, all the bits here are on, all the bits there are on, and the very last octet, all the bits are off. And of course, the subnet mask determines what part of the IP address is the network portion and what part of the IP address is the host portion. In this case, the first 3 octets are on for the subnet mask. So on for the subnet mask means that it is the network portion, whereas off being the zeros, that is the host portion. So we're going to take a look at 4 different IP addresses, and we're going to determine out of those 4 IP addresses what is the network address, the host range, and what the broadcast address is. And we're going to do that by using what I call the magic number. And the magic number is derived from this table up here, but from this row here. So 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. And those are the same numbers from the previous slide. We're not going to use these top 2. I'm not going to talk about them anyways that much, but we're mostly going to use this bottom one, this bottom row here. Okay, so starting off, we have the IP address 10.5.4.50 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.128. And we have our table over here, and the row that we're going to be using is this row down here. So the very first thing that we need to do in order to determine what the network address is for this host IP address 10.5.4.50 is we have to find out what the magic number is. And the way that you do that is you find the octet of interest. Now the octet of interest is the octet that the string of ones in the subnet mask ends in. In this case, that's this one here. This octet is the octet of interest because the 1 is there and it ends in this octet. So this long string of ones, the very last one is in this octet. So from here, what we can do is determine what the networks increment by, and that's going to be the magic number. So what we'll do is we'll start off at this number here, or this 0 here. We go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and 128. That's what the networks increment by. So we'll say 10.5.4. And because we know that it's 50, 50 falls in between 0 and 128, so that is the first subnet. So the first subnet is 0. 10.5.4.0. And the magic number is 128. The host range is going to be 10.5.4.0 10.1, because we can't use 0, that's the network address, and we can't use the last IP address because that's going to be used for the broadcast address, so it goes all the way through 126. And because you have to use 0 in there, the magic number is 128, so that's not the total amount of hosts. That is the incremental value for the subnet. So the very next subnet would be 128. So what we're going to do is say that the broadcast address is 10.5.4.127. That is the very last IP address in that range, 0 all the way through 127. 0 inclusive through 127 equals 128. So moving right along, we have the same IP address, but what we're doing is we're actually, instead of borrowing a bit from the host portion, we're borrowing a bit from the network portion, so we're going over 1. So the principle still applies. This is the octet of interest because that is where the very last 1 ends. It ends in this octet. So what we can do is count from right to left, and it makes it a little easy because the 1 is so close to the end. So we'll go 1, 2. So 2 is our magic number. So we know that the networks increment by 2 now. So we can say, starting off from the first one, we can go 10.5.4.0, and then we'll go 10.5.6.0, and then we'll say 10.5.8.0, incrementing 2 as we go all the way down. But the only IP address that we're interested in is the one that ends in .50. So in this case, we know that 10.5.4.50 is within this subnet here. It goes somewhere in between there. So we know that it is part, this being the next network, we know that the network that it belongs to is the 10.5.4.0 network. And we'll go ahead and do the broadcast address next. That'll make it in the host range a little easier. We'll say that the broadcast address is the very last IP address in the range, which is 10.5.5.255, and that is 1 less than the next subnet being 10.5.6.0. And with that, we can easily determine what the host range is, the host range being 10.5.5 or .4.1 through 10.5.5.254. Those are your valid hosts that you can use. Alright, so the next one that we have here is 172.16.5.80, and we've written out this subnet mask a little differently. This is what's called CIDR notation, classless interdomain routing, and all that means is that's just a shorthand notation of writing out the subnet mask. So instead of writing out 255.255.255 like that, what we're doing is we're just saying that there are 17 bits that are on in the subnet portion. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 bits that are on for the network portion of the IP address, which would be the same thing as writing 255.255.128.0. So the first thing we need to do is find out what our magic number is. So we'll say, starting here, we go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and 128. So that is our magic number, 128. Now, because we know that that's 128, we know that the networks increment by that much. So we can say that the network address falls in between 172.16.0.0 through 172.16.128.0. And with this information, we see here that the network portion is 172.16.0.0, and the host range is 172.16.0.1 all the way through 172.16.127.254, leaving 172.16.127.255 as the broadcast address. And lastly, we have the same IP address, just a different subnet mask. If we were to look at our subnet mask row here, we can see that the subnet mask is, the amount of bits is 12, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we can start off in this octet and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 being the amount of bits in that octet, so it would be 255.240.0.0. So with this information, what we can do is find out that the magic number is 16, because 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16, and this is the octet of interest. So what we can do is start off with 172.16.0.0. That is the very first network that we're just going to start to use here in this example. And then the next one is 172.32.0.0. And if we were to continue, we could say that the next one is 172.48, because we're adding 16. It increments by 16.0.0. So the magic number we're saying is 16. So the network address for this is going to be, because we know that the IP address 5.80, that's where the host is, that falls in between 172.16.0.0 and 172.32.0.0. So we know that the network is 172.16.0.0. And we can say that the valid host range is 172.16.0.1 all the way through 172.31.255.254. And the broadcast address is going to be 172.31.255.255. So there you have it, subnetting, and as you can see here, it's fairly simple once you know how to find the magic number.
I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.